In this tutorial, I'm going to cover the basic principles of the REFlex Warper. There are a few concepts that once you understand, you can apply to both the morpher and the warper. Let's start with a simple warp. The warper is used to create a transformation using a single source. Example, you take a face and you pull the nose. In our example, we will use an eye. You can download the project file and work along with me, or you can try this on your own after watching the tutorial. I'm going to the project called One Bulging Eye. For this warp, we will start by adding REFlex Warp plugin to our clip. I can just type RE:F in the search box and you will see REFlex Warp. We just drag that to our clip. Now, in order to warp this image, let's say we want to bulge the girl's eye. For any warp, we need to first go to the Effect Controls panel and put the display on Unwarped Image. So we're looking at the source image. Just so you understand, we have a source, the red shape, which is the original image before warping, and a destination, the green shape, which is the image after warping. In the display, that is the warped image, we have a source and a destination in space, so we need to draw a mask to warp from the source to the destination. This first example shows how to use a pair of closed splines to control a warp. In the second tutorial, we'll discuss how to use open splines along with multiple pairs of splines. Let's go ahead and add a mask. We select the pen tool and draw a closed spline. When we make a closed spline, After Effects will use it for masking. This is why After Effects calls it a mask. I may use these words interchangeably. We make a closed spline around the eye. We will select the vertex point we started with to close the shape. Now we will tap inside the yellow box to change the mask color. We can use any color we want. I will use red for the source and green for the destination. We can change the name. I will call this Left Eye from GEOM. We will change the mask type from Add to None in the timeline so that it does no masking. We can duplicate this mask using Command D on the Mac or Control D for Windows and change the name to Left Eye to GEOM. And change the mask color to green. The order here on the timeline is important. The splines are listed in pairs. First a from spline, then a to spline, and if we had more shapes, they would continue with another from spline and another to spline, etc. You might ask, how does REFlex know which splines to use? Well, you don't have a choice. REFlex uses all the splines on the layer to control the warp. It's good to get into the habit of just duplicating the from spline to create the to spline as we just did, because later on, when you have more complex warps and morphs, this will ensure that the source and destination spline have the same number of points, which will ultimately be helpful. Let's go to the Effect Controls window for REFlex Warp and change the display to Warped Image. See, it's easy to move the wrong mask. But if you check the box next to Auto Hide Show Masks to just show the to mask when the display is on warped image, leaving only the destination mask showing, this will make it much easier to warp your image without selecting the from mask by mistake while making adjustments. If you then change to the unwarped image, only the from mask will be displayed as you see here. Now, on frame 1, we can close the eye a little by adjusting the shape. You can see that we have warped the image. I said we were going to make the eye bulge though, right? This is more of a squint. So now that you have the concept down of a source-destination pair or a to-from pair, let's introduce the concept of animation. So we have a from-to pair at one point in time. Let's set a keyframe by toggling the stopwatch. Now we have a keyframe at frame 1. What if we want to change that over time? Then we have to have another keyframe later down the road, right? So let's go to frame 15. Now we don't want the source to change, so we just need to make a change to our destination. At frame 15, we can set another keyframe without changing the source or the from mask. I will go ahead now and make my eye bulge out. I go to the to shape, or the destination, at frame 15 and make a change to the shape. You can do a RAM preview of the simple warp you have just animated. It appears that the eye squints a bit and then bulges out, but the whole face seems to also animate. We can add a boundary mask around the eye to contain this effect inside the boundary. Let's go back to the masks and add another shape around the eye. First, put the display on unwarped image. This time we don't need a pair because we're going to make this a boundary mask. Let's leave this mask color yellow, change the type to none, and call this shape boundary. Now go to the Effect Controls and go to the pull-down menu next to Boundary and select Boundary. Now when you do the RAM preview, you will only see the warp within the boundary mask. This is how you do a basic warp using a closed spline. You can also view the tutorial on how to do a basic warp using open splines in Part 2 of Warper Basics for a more complete understanding.